I'm back, by the way.
Welcome back. What's the next question? Andy, thanks so much for stepping in, bro.
We've got one from Mike, actually.
Oh, shit. Okay.
One of our own mods. Going forward, he's asking, going forward, how will the Forsaken continue on without Sylvanas leading them? And how will more be made?
Okay, so unless the light has some fuckery up their sleeve, I don't think more can actually be made. With the removal of Sylvanas from the chessboard, I don't think more Forsaken can be made. So the Forsaken is basically, as things stand, in terminal decline. It is a population that is rotting away. Now, technically speaking, Forsaken are immortal, but they're not invincible, so they can still die. They're not going to die of old age because they don't age, but war and strife will absolutely diminish their numbers, and because they can't actually replenish those numbers because they can't have children, well, that's a fuck up. The question becomes, can Kalia Menethil make them whole? In other words, can Kalia Menethil give them the youth and the sort of look that she has herself? In other words, can she stunt the rotting process? Because ultimately what eventually will happen to Forsaken is they will, if we can use a little bit of lore from Warhammer, if you pull World of Warcraft 10,000 years into the future, Forsaken will basically look like Necrons. Because they already do it now. Whenever they rot too much, they use metal and stuff to... This is why a lot of Forsaken have metal jaws, because the lower part of their jaw have rotted off. The muscles have rot to the point where the jaw can no longer be held in place. And so they just put a metal piece there to serve as their new jaw. And that's probably what would end up. They would probably become some machine race at some point, just because how else are they supposed to survive? But Kalia Menethil obviously came back and she was preserved, like Sylvanas and like what's his name? Nathanos. So there is a world in which Kalia Menethil could offer them this. I don't know if the light can make more Forsaken, because I already think they spent all of their goodwill making this one, Kalia Menethil, and they're not known for being capable of doing this en masse. So, yeah. Unless, of course, Bolvar has some tricks up his sleeve. There is a world in which Bolvar could perhaps create more Forsaken if he could be moved to do so. Also, we probably have to ask ourselves if Blizzard is even going to pay attention to that storyline. Like, sometimes Blizzard can slip on the smaller, nuanced storylines that require answers, but is perhaps not so high up on the totem pole. Or at least the type as we want it to be.
The only thing I could see that I could see them doing besides going with the light, because now Kalia is the sort of the Forsaken representative, is possibly mending ties with Odin and getting like actual Valkyr, not the Scourge variant of Valkyr, and maybe getting more Forsaken that way. It would also probably lead to more put together and intact Forsaken.
Yeah.
But given Odin's a greedy prick, so he's probably never going to make any deals with anything after what happened with Helia.
Yeah. So let me just quickly answer Rate here. Rate, I'm aware of the interaction. I played it myself, so I saw that interaction. The problem there is that Margrave was very specifically talking about Kalia. Kalia wanted to know how she was made by the light, considering that it's necromancy, And the Margrave explained that, well, light is just another form of magic, and any form of magic can use necromancy in order to bring beings back. Even if I was willing to accept that, which I'm not, but even if I was willing to accept that explanation, you run into another problem. Necromancy isn't easy. You can't do it en masse. There's no being in the universe that is strong enough, at least mortal being, that is strong enough to bring back thousands upon thousands every single day, which is kind of what the Forsaken would need right now, considering their numbers. They are by far the smallest faction on Azeroth, so it's not going to be enough to just bring back one or two. And considering the tremendous amount of time that you need in order to perform necromancy, it's just not plausible. This is why the Valkyr was so instrumental for Sylvanas, because they could bring back massive amounts of undead in one go, so they could do it literally with ease. Whereas a single mortal would be able to bring back a single undead, but it would take a while. It's probably going to take a couple of days of sorcery and sort of rituals in order to bring back that being. So you can't really scale it up. It's not scalable. And then Patalin, thank you so much, Steven Sub. Really appreciate that. 5 months in a row. Thank you. I don't know what that answer is. Moni, can you quickly repeat what you said? What you think the answer could be?
Yeah, I think that they could go a couple routes. The first one that came to mind is trying to mend the Forsaken's relationship with Odin, because of what Sylvanas did to Aegir while she was working with Helia, and maybe getting some actual Valkyr instead of the Scourge variant or the Mossworn variant or anything like that.
Yeah, Odin would fucking not do that.
Yeah, the other thing that comes to mind now that I've went through basically the Valkyr, even Odin's Valkyr aren't the original. It's the chosen of, or the ascended in Bastion. So maybe Kalia could go to the Accolonn and ask her for assistance. And then, like you said, with necromancy, it is difficult to do en masse. The problem I have with like using the light as a power source is that I don't believe that I believe that they could do necromancy. I don't believe they'd be able to actually pull the souls back into those bodies unless the souls that they are using are ones that already went to the light as we currently understand it. Like if you're sworn to a certain power, supposedly your soul goes to that realm upon death.
They can absolutely, like, we've seen this with the questions, although Blizzard may have changed that with Shadowlands. But no, the reason I reject the Margrave's claims, and even though people will point to it and say, oh, but dude, it's in the game, it must be canon, the Margrave wasn't speaking on this because the Margrave knew. The Margrave was sort of speculating on this, as far as I'm concerned, because it's obviously not true that any magic can perform necromancy. Unless, of course, Blizzard have changed what necromancy is in a fantasy sense, just because why not? Because fantasy-wise, necromancy is never a good form of magic. Fantasy-wise, necromancy has an incredibly high price. The ones who do wield it are, generally speaking, thrown out of whatever magic order exists in whichever fantasy genre you want to go into. They do not accept necromancy as a legitimate form of power because it is so corrupting. The power over life and death corrupts mages and makes mages do very horrible things. So, necromancy, as it were, right, is not supposed to be a magic that can be invoked by the light. Now, you could probably make an argument for it. I could make an argument for it that makes it stick. So maybe I'm wrong in this. I don't like it, but at the same time, you could make an argument that doesn't destroy it, right? That proves it. So maybe yeah, maybe I choose to reject it because I think there's more interesting things that happen when that isn't true. So that's why I reject it. But I'm perfectly okay to take the owl there and say, okay, never mind. The light can also do necromancy. Why not? You know, I'll take that owl if I have to. It's not something I'm married to. And he's not right now. Anyways, thanks for the question. I really appreciate that.